Brethren, please rise for the invocation. O hidden life, vibrant in every atom, O hidden light, shining in every creature, O hidden love, embracing all in oneness, may all who feel themselves as one with Thee know they are therefore one with every other. Be seated, brethren. On behalf of the Madras Theosophical Federation and all the lodges affiliated with the Madras Theosophical Federation, I extend a very warm welcome to all of you this evening, thanking you for taking pains to come all the way for this in-person meetings which we have started since January. We will now start the meeting. The term Vedanta is a combination of two words, Veda and Anta. Veda signifying knowledge and Anta a kind of ending, but that is only in literal sense. What it would project to is reaching such a state of or attaining a state of knowledge that which is complete. So knowledge here is not referred to any book, information, data or any kind of intellectual knowledge, but such knowledge that attributes to the realization of God. Here God, we all agree that God is omnipotent, omniscient and omnipresent. Therefore, He is everywhere, including within us. Which means that Vedanta is a process of journeying without and within. Without into the world and the universe, and within into our own selves. That is the real journey that the Vedanta signifies. So, today we are very fortunate to have with us Dr. VVS Raveendra, who is going to talk to us on this subject of the scientific approach to Vedanta. Dr. VVS Raveendra started off his academic career as a mechanical engineer. Then he pursued his master's and PhD in aerospace engineering and multidisciplinary unit of IIT Madras. And he, after this doctorate, he has joined the Tata Consultancy Services in 1997. And since then, he has been playing various roles. Today, as we speak, he is a Chief Technology Officer, leading one of the business units. Dr. Raveendra was very fortunate to have been introduced to the spiritual path at a very young age by his father. And he progressed on that, and even at the age of the teens, he had taken a great interest in Bhagavad Gita. And when he was doing his research as a research scholar in IIT Madras, he had the opportunity to interact and attend various courses, discourses and meetings organized by the director of the IIT Madras. And that inspired him a lot to study deep in Upanishads. Not only Bhagavad Gita, but he went deep into Upanishads. That led him to the self-study. And then he has progressed a lot from there. And recently, since 2018, he was associated with an organization called Adyar Bharati. It's a collection of very deep and serious students who take this study of Upanishads very seriously. And it also consists of a group of teachers, scholars, who have great knowledge, and then they, every week almost, they meet only to discuss this Saramsa of these Upanishads and entire Vedanta. Dr. Raveendra actually is not only associated with that, but he tries to apply his learnings from science and technology into Vedanta, and then visualizes the end result of such combinations. And today he is with us to share such wonderful insights that he has got with an intersection of science, technology and Vedanta. Without much ado, I would like to invite Dr. Raveendra to speak to us today. Over to you, Raveendra.
Good evening, everyone. I hope I am audible, particularly to the people at the end. And I have a tough job to do because I see people who are very young and people who are perhaps quite knowledgeable and senior people. So I will try to do justice to the job given to me today. Little background before I start with prayer. The prayer that we read out in the beginning is nothing but about oneness and the infinite. And Vedanta is essentially evolving ourselves from being limited to realize that we are only unlimited and not limited. And see, when we were students, say 3 decades ago, the general notion is science or spirituality used to be the discussion, and some people hold a view that they may be in conflict. Science and religion may be in conflict, I don't know, but Vedanta actually goes beyond science. And learning science helps in understanding the teaching far more deeply, and it helps really, there is absolutely no conflict. And one more disclaimer here before I continue. I am neither a scholar in Sanskrit nor a physicist, but the spiritual path I got from my parents, and we learned science for living, and applying this science has helped in understanding things better, because 4 or 5 decades ago when we asked questions, we were told not to ask questions. And we did not stop asking questions, and that has helped in understanding much more deeply. And therefore, I am standing in front of you only as a student, not as a scholar or a teacher. I want you to please make note of that. Because as long as we are ready to learn and share, we can progress. And the purpose of standing in front of you today is basically to share what I have been learning. And there is no more intent on that. I like to start with a prayer which is required for learning. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. This prayer is quite an objective prayer. It has actually no religion. Because when we are learning, the so-called teacher and student, or the group of people who came together to learn, they should not have differences and end up in an argument. Rather, the discussion should enrich the learning. And may the infinite give us strength to learn and be together. That's the intent. And I'll move forward. So I'm trying to take an overview of the scientific learning that has happened over a period of time. The initial scientific study, if you go back 4th century, Tycho Brahe, that period, the interest was to learn the structure of the universe. There are people today, even today, who are deeply interested in learning the structure of the universe on any scale. In the sense that there are people who study the DNA, which forms the fundamental biological structure. There are people, by the time it was late 19th and early 20th century, people started learning about atomic structure. There are people who are geology people, studying geological structures and how things are making happen. For example, there is an earthquake in Turkey, and that happens because of a geological process. They study those geological structures. And there are people who study crystal structures because the material properties for a given material come because of the crystal structures. And how the crystal structures give strength to the property, the material, whether it is aircraft material or a car material. There are people who study that structure with the microscope. And there are also people who study the galactic structures. So they take one galaxy as a unit and study the galactic structures. There are people who study interstellar structures and they devote all their time to study this. So all these initial to today, this body of knowledge, this investigation is to study the structure of the universe at its infinite scale. There are so many disciplines only to understand the structure, the visible structure of the universe. So here we will come back and revisit this. Then what happened? I go back to Newton as primary thing, or Cortes, when they started reasoning the structure that they are seeing. Why it is like this? Now when you ask this question and develop sense of inquiry, you start realizing that there is a law of gravitation. There is a law of electromagnetism. There is another law called Boyle's law. There is one more law. So the rules, the laws that govern the material behavior that we see on the surface, they started inquiring into discovering those laws. So last 300 plus years, entire scientific inquiry is to find these laws of nature. Because as we saw in the first step, the nature or the universe that's in front of us, as we see it, is infinite, and there are so many laws to be discovered. To the extent that even the Nobel laureates who received Nobel Prize end of 22 for physics, they have proved something and they know this will take them further. Because their lectures end with new questions, which will become subject of inquiry further. But here we are rising from a structure to understanding the laws of nature that dictate the structure we see on the surface. For example, the biological laws define how we are, and so on. Right? Then what happened? People started researching into understanding this intelligence. They started about 5 decades ago, because 6 decades ago there were computers, and then 5 decades ago there were courageous people who started inquiring into intelligence itself. So they called themselves artificial intelligence, and for about 2 decades to 3 decades, they thought that if you understand a set of rules, then you have captured the knowledge and the intelligence. There are people who do that even today. The computers which win chess game against humans with good computing capability behind, they also use these rules. So, because the nature of the game is rule driven. So, the point here is, after 2-3 decades, the community realized knowledge is not limited to a set of rules. Knowledge goes beyond a set of rules, or intelligence. For example, I am seeing a few of you here. perhaps for the first time, and after a month I might see you somewhere on the street and I may recognize that you are this person. Now, how do I learn this? How do I learn this? I cannot state it as a rule. A plus B equal to C. It's not possible. Then people thought that through examples I can learn. That's how I learn. The mother teaches that this is cat. After telling a few times, we learned from our mother that yes, this is cat, and we memorized it. And therefore, if we can find a technique to teach the computer and learn this the way we learn from examples, then that can be captured. This is another path that people have taken for about 3 decades now. And that has reached actually a crescendo last year December, with people finding as alternate to Google, you ask question, it will give you answer, it will do so many things. But this learning, so what learning does is, the intelligence can do is, it can discover laws, the rules, the associations, and it can set rules. The intelligence can set rules. Intelligence can also discover rules and the interconnections. Now, the people who are doing research on intelligence today from computer science, they have found techniques to do this, and whatever tools they have developed, today they are extensively used by medical sciences and astronomers. They have succeeded in dealing with large sets of data and structures. For example, about 50-60 years ago, if you wanted to find a supernova, explosion of a star at the end of its life, you had to really sit in front of telescope day and night and pray that you can see a supernova. But today, the huge telescopes, they are computer controlled, they are programmed, and sitting at your home, you can write a program, set the direction, capture all the high density pictures, put it through a computer program that has the so-called AI, and it will tell you how many supernovas were recorded in that zone. So both astronomers and medical sciences people, particularly people who are in life sciences discovering drugs, they use this AI extensively because it's a laborious process, and using this intelligent automation, they can do many things faster. So, can you imagine that today's astronomers have the courage to make a map of the universe? How it is this way? Now, this is where the science is today. So, broadly, the entire scientific inquiry, trying to keep in 3 layers, studying what is visible as a structure, taking one step back, trying to understand the laws of nature that bring the shape in front of us, then what is that intelligence behind that helps in recognizing these laws or dictating these laws or setting new laws, whatever it is. Now this is useful for us to understand what we have been taught. Okay, I hope my speed is okay. I am not in a hurry to cover the content. Now, I have 2 points to say, because this artificial intelligence and its usage has gone to a scale where these 2 pictures that you are seeing, the one on the left and the right, you cannot make out whether they are from astronomy or from the brain. This structure, what people found was the galaxies communicate through energy waves, because you have sunlight. Sunlight is nothing but energy wave, and this energy spectrum is distributed through the universe, and you can see the energy channels established between planets or solar systems or galaxies. And when all these are done, that kind of structure which you see is discovered. Now, through energy spectrum, there is a communication, as though there is a communication, maybe that is the right way to say, and learning from each other. Because it is this inter-communication or the influence by each other is what decides the evolution of the universe. And the brain structures, because there are neurons and they are interconnected through synapses, and that is the structure you see on the right, and they look alike. Now the question, so you can read the paper, it's available. When you read this paper, right now, this is personally, I see it as a edge of scientific inquiry, because the person who wrote this article ends the article by saying, is universe learning? Which implies, if universe is learning, it has an implication that there is a being associated at the universe scale, an intelligent being, whatever way you like to visualize it. But that is only a question, it is not a conclusion. I like to make it very clear. So this is actually the height of achievement from a science perspective on how far somebody can go. And so this lady is actually in Australia, New Zealand area. She has been doing research on biological intelligence, in the sense that plants can memorize, plants can discover patterns, meaning they can recognize a pattern and they can memorize that pattern. They communicate with each other. For example, in this forest, if you started burning or cutting a tree, at the end of the forest, the tree knows that you started this, and they communicate and they live as a community. And all this study, biological intelligence study, she has propagated, and you can watch her lectures in YouTube. So the biologists, the astronomy people, together have massively studied this intelligence, how it is structured. So it's mind-boggling that plants can communicate, plants can recognize patterns, and which we think are dumb. Or we know that they have life, but we perhaps did not know that they communicate, they memorize, they recognize patterns and rules. And you do search in YouTube, you will find lot of proof videos for that purpose. Now, up to this it is science. Now the relation to how this helps us to understand what is taught in the scriptures. Now, so one thing is this structure. So at the bottommost is a materialistic tendency that all of us have to acquire materials. I want to acquire a house, I want to marry, I want to have children, I want to have a professional growth, promotion. If I am a doctor, I want bigger hospital, serve more patients, like that. If I am a teacher, I want a bigger set of students so that I can teach more people, be more purposeful to the society. All that thinking, material wise. And also, while helping others, we want to give food to others, we want to give shelter to others, we want to give clothes to others. So, both on the positive side, we do help on the material side. Now, if you take a step back, then what you do, you have religion. What does religion do essentially? It gives you a structured behavior, a set of rules, so that your behavior of materialism is contained, you become a better being, your behavior is more controlled, more meaningful to the overall system, and thereby we clean up ourselves and we don't go down the drain. So religion essentially gives us a set of rules to live with, an order to live with, and that helps us to take a step back from materialism, which means a typical religious person follows a set of rules and abides by those rules. That means you know how to handle that. There are people who misuse it, but for the people who want to progress, these rules are very useful. Wake up early morning before sunrise, eat food to the extent that you need, and so on, so many things. Then the spiritual people, they are not satisfied with the set of rules. They want to see what is behind these rules. And they want to see everything as one. And they question into the intelligence. So, the spiritual people are not so bogged down by the religious rules. They see the oneness. The materialistic people, come what may, they want what they want. And then the scriptures teach us like this. So, Virat, when you say Virat, the universe in physical form. And when you say Sutratma, Sutra Atma, the essence of the laws. So there are so many laws of nature, they are all put in one word as Sutratma. So Sutratma word encompasses all possible scientific laws of nature that you can visualize. And Hiranyagarbha, Hiranyam here implies Tejamu, meaning the intelligence, the light, all these words to describe this single word, which is Garbha internally. So, within these laws of nature, within the physical structures that we see, there is an intelligence that drives all this, and it is universal, and there is only one at universal scale. So, all these three words are at universal scale, only one word, meaning they don't, Virat word does not represent two, it represents only one. It represents the entire physical universe. And Sutratma represents all laws of nature that you can visualize in one word summary. And then the intelligence behind. Now, if we offer prayers in the form of plucking flowers, putting in front of the deity, so you are using materials. So that you call whatever word you use, puja, let's say. And the people who do puja, they will necessarily need a form, whatever that form be. And people, one step back, they do japam, they deal with name, they are happy with the name. They close their eyes or open their eyes, they keep repeating a name, and they are okay to not have a form, or they are light on the form and they are happy. So all these prayers that you do with the mind, they are subtle. They don't disturb the nature, because if I go and pluck flowers, then I am disturbing the nature. But if I pray with mind, the same prayer with more involvement, I don't have to disturb the nature. And the people, but again, when you are doing japam, you are still existing, your identity is still there, but when you do dhyanam and you become one with the infinite, and there is nothing else but knowing, then you have resolved your mind also into the infinite. So, the evolution happens like this. I have brought, actually I had so much content to cover, I am conscious of time. So this is part 1 that I wanted to cover. Looking back into entire scientific inquiry, how it is organized and how it summarizes 3 words from scriptures, Virat, Sutratma and Hiranyagarbha, 3 words encompass all this. Without deep inquiry, we cannot appreciate these 3 words. And it requires so much scientific learning to understand what these 3 words imply to us. And so I move to the second part. So second part is from Kathopanishad. Because there are youngsters, I like to briefly summarize the Upanishad for their benefit. So Uddalaka Aruni tries to do a yagam and is giving donations to various people. And his son Nachiketas finds that his father is giving away old cows which can no longer give milk, and so on. And he feels it is not right. So he goes to his father and says, "To whom you are offering me?" And the father says, "I am offering you to Mrityu Devata, the god of death." And this needs to be understood carefully, but that is not the focus right now. When Uddalakarani tells his son that I am offering you to the god of death, what does it mean? It's a topic to inquire some other day. However, then he lands in the place of Mrityu Devata, Yama, and Mrityu Devata is out of station. He waits at his house for 3 days without food and water. So Mrityu Devata returns after going for a camp, and he realizes that this young Brahmin is there without food. He is a guest of the house and he was not offered anything, which is not right. So somebody tells him, "No, you go and set this right." So he meets the young boy and says, "See, you have been so devoted, waiting for me, and it's also fault on our part that you have not been taken care of. So I am giving you a chance to ask for 3 boons." So first boon, he says, "I should go back and my father should be happy to see me, that I am not a ghost who returned and I am the same person. And my father should be happy." He says, "Okay." Then second, he says, "You teach me this knowledge." Okay, it's called Nachiketa Agni Vidya. So Yama says, okay, he teaches, and Nachiketas recites back to him, and Yama says, "Yes, you have learned properly. And what more do you want?" He says, "I want the ultimate knowledge." And then Yama refuses, and he tries to give him so many things, and Nachiketas says, "No, I don't want any of this. All that I want is knowledge. I am not ready for anything else." So the Yama does lot of tests to this boy, and after he passes all these tests, Yama decides that this boy is ready for learning, and he starts teaching the knowledge. And this verse that you are seeing, the mantra you are seeing on the screen, summarizes the knowledge that is taught. And there are 6 vallis, 2 chapters. Each chapter has 3 valli. And this is the 6th valli, 2nd chapter, 3rd valli, 1st mantra. I am not going to go in detail about all the 3 lines that you see on the screen, but our interest is just the first line. Urdhvamulo avak syakaha eshosvatha sanatanaha. Urdhva moolam. Urdhva is above, mula is root. The root is above. Avak syakaha, the branch is below. So, for a normal tree, biological tree that we see, it's upside down. If we take this as a reference, the tree is upside down. So, it has roots below, the branches going outward. And the knowledge tree, because by the time Yama came to 6th chapter beginning, he starts summarizing. He has already taught important aspects. He is summarizing, and this is the first rule that he teaches, that Urdhva Mulaha, the root is above, keep the root above, keep the branches down. And this is a knowledge tree, this is the way you organize knowledge. And this is Sanatana, time immemorial, knowledge is organized like this only. Okay, and that is the summary. Now this has great implication to first understand this, because this summarizes so many things, and gives us a tool and a structure to organize knowledge and our behavior. And so this comes to our rescue when we use science. Without science explaining this first line, for those of you who are familiar with Bhagavad Gita, 15th chapter has first 3 verses which look alike, and they mean the same. They mean the same. And 15th chapter explains after this concept is introduced the rest. So to understand this, to understand 15th chapter, we need to understand this. And here it is a summary which we will use later. He is teaching. He says before he starts, this is the first 2 mantras that are used when he starts teaching the Nachiketas. So first he says there are 2 paths. One path is Shreyo Marga, another path is Preyo Marga. And he says the wise people take the Shreyo Marga, the unwise dull people take the Preyo Marga. So the things are summarized in the right bottom. So the Shreyo Marga translated to English as good, the Preyo Marga as pleasant. To explain in simple terms, we are offered many sweets, spicy foods. They are pleasant when we consume them. And once we add calories, we have to exercise to burn them. So the wise people, they take limited sweet and exercise to the extent required. The not so wise people, they consume as much they want because while consuming it is pleasant, but lands us in trouble later. Even if we exercise to the quantity that we consumed, it is not easy. And if we don't exercise, the consequence also is not easy. So this path, which looks pleasant at the beginning, leads us to trouble. And the dull people, the not so wise people, take this path. And the wise people take the other path. And that is what you have chosen, and I am impressed with you. And he teaches a host of things. And now, to understand this tree, because it is a knowledge tree, we need to understand the knowledge tree. The reason I took computer science, artificial intelligence in the beginning was it gives us a clue to understand this mantra. So on the left that you see is graph theory is generally taught at postgraduate level. I have not studied the subject completely, but I have studied this because it was needed for my research. And it's a mathematical subject, abstract subject, and that forms the basis for data structures, how you organize data in the computer to treat the data and information and knowledge. So you use this mathematical subject as a basis to develop those structures, and then you have to process the data efficiently, because the moment you unlock your screen, for example, you have face recognized identity for your phone. So you like the iPhone, you show your face and it comes, then it has to happen fast. If it has to happen fast, that information has to be organized properly. Otherwise it cannot, if it takes 1 hour to unlocking, then you won't use that phone. So any data, suppose you log into computer and you are paying your phone bill, and TNEV asks your connection number, you give your number and log in. For you to log in and get your bill amount detail, if it takes ages, you are never going to pay. So the data is organized in some form, that form is tree structure. And most of the databases. So how do you process data? By putting that in the structure. 2 things. How do you put a ton of data in this structure, and how do you process? That is algorithm part. The structure is derived. So these 3 subjects go together. They go together, and typically computer science people learn this in their 3rd semester. And because I was learning parallelly Gita Upanishads and these subjects together at right age, I was lucky to correlate. It was just an accident. And now when you correlate, you get a beautiful understanding of what is being taught, and a fantastic tool, because this structure gives you the most efficient way to reach the infinite. And there could not have been a better visualization. And you read the scriptures, for example, there are other data structures. Taittiriya Upanishad uses one of those structures that is not a tree, and it is called stack. So while reading, we realize that the rishis had this knowledge because it is used. Ton of mathematical knowledge, abstract math knowledge while teaching all this. And if you have learnt maths while studying this, you know maths is here. Like a doctor knows, okay, biology is here, like that. And so the structure is explained here. So the tree that you see on the left is the knowledge tree. Don't worry about the numbers there. I just took the picture from internet. And the natural tree is on the right. And somebody captured this photograph where it has only 2 branches. So that's why I took this example. Now, you can see the knowledge tree is inverted in comparison with the natural tree. Okay, and now we will make use of this. Now, if you have 2 branches only at most, it's called binary tree. If you have 4 branches, it is called quad tree, 4 tree. And mostly, while looking at images from the internet, what happens if the image is very high resolution, you will find it blurred in the beginning. Once it is downloaded, it will be crystal clear. They use typically quad tree to do that efficiently. So the picture is with you immediately, and by the time you absorb it, entire picture is downloaded. And so not necessary that you should have two branches or 4 branches. Typically a family tree is organized in a tree structure only. There is no other way. And one family may have 2 children, 3 children, no children. One has boy, another has only girl, 2 boys, 2 girls. All possibilities exist. And with the tree structure, you can represent that perfectly. Organizational structures which are hierarchical also represented using a tree. And, Now, how do we make use of this? Urdhva mulaha, avak syakaha. Now, urdhvam here is the one which is at the root is also better one, is also param, the better one, the superior one. Now, if you take knowledge you represent as there is science, social or languages that we have learnt in school, but knowledge encompasses all of them. All the 3 branches are encompassed in knowledge. We cannot say one branch encompasses entire knowledge. So, when you say knowledge, it is superior because it encompasses everything. And going further, if you say science, then you have physics, chemistry, biology. Now, science encompasses all the branches, but therefore, when you say science, it is superior to any of the branches because it's encompassing everything. And now if you go down one branch called biology or chemistry, you will be unaware of the rest, which means you don't get the full picture. You get only a partial picture and you will be lost. That's the idea in terms of knowledge. And again, you go to a chemistry department in a big institution, university, you will find physical chemistry, organic chemistry, inorganic chemistry, biochemistry, so many departments in one chemistry department. And if you go to a chemistry research institution, there will be groups of people for all these disciplines. And again, chemistry encompasses all of this. And same way medical sciences. Right? So, these specializations cannot be above all-encompassing medical science. Now, the idea is to use this structure to understand what is being taught in the scripture and in the right way. So, I am summarizing. the one which is root is above. The one which is a branch is below, and it is inferior. The one which is root is superior. Now, this is actually from Kena Upanishad. For youngsters, I am summarizing the Upanishad. This is one of the simpler Upanishads but profound one. Student asks the teacher, I am not able to concentrate. What should I do? And this is the answer that the teacher has given. And the teacher and student are not named in Kena Upanishad. And after the teaching, there is a story that there is a yaksha who came to devatas because they were proud of their achievement. And yaksha puts a blade of grass in front of these people and asks them to move it. So Agni goes first, he cannot move it or burn it. Then Vayu goes next, he cannot move it by inch. Then Indra goes, then the yaksha disappears. Then he takes a back step, thinks, hey, what happened? And then he realizes that, something has gone wrong with us. And then the God appears as Uma with a form. Yaksha had no form, but when Uma came, it was a form. And explains that this victory that you had was because of the infinite and not because of you. And then they realized what they have missed, and the story is concluded. So the science or the Shastra is taught in the first two khandas in Kena Upanishad. That same lesson is elaborated as a story in the third and fourth khanda. That is a quick summary of Kena Upanishad. Now, this is the second mantra in the first khanda. It says, Srotrasya Srotram. Eye of the eye. Srotrasya Srotram. Eye of the eye. Meaning, what is that makes eye do its job? That is above the eye itself. Similarly, Chakshushaha Chakshuhu. I made a mistake. The ear, how do you have the ability to hear? The one which gives you the hearing ability is above the ear. Same way for the eyes. And Vachoha Vak, the speech, that which gives the speech is above the speech organ itself, the physical organ. And so all these physical organs are kept at the bottom of the tree, and that is what is represented on the right side. And then all our actions are enabled by prana. So it's called pranasya pranaha. So it is prana, it is the life that enables the eye to function, because the person who has no life, the organs are not functioning. Even they can be removed and transplanted in somebody, they will function. But once the life is not there in that particular body, these indriyas, they cannot function. And therefore, the life, the prana, is kept above, because that is what is the enabling the individual organs. And then, prana is form of energy. And this energy and its utilization is decided by the mind. So you have an impulse to run and you will run. So it is the mind which gets the thought to run, and it puts the energy to use to run. I want to help this person, I want to study this. So the mind makes the thought and it decides how the energy should be directed to achieve the thing. So mind is kept above. And manaso manaha. What is that which gives mind its ability? That is kept above. And 3 steps are given. Actually, if you still your mind when you are awake, then you are in a state of simply knowing. There is neither the known nor the knower. You are simply in a state of knowing if you can still your mind. And in 3 steps, see the efficiency of the algorithm. The knowledge that we have, what we see, the behavior in the world is organized in just one mantra. 3 steps. The bottommost one is physical, the organs. The next one is form of energy, and that energy functions as per some rules. And it is manas, which is part of the intelligence that dictates how that energy should be put to use. And the first part, 3 layers, map here, and the tree structure gives in which direction we should move while progressing. So we say path of knowledge. That path of knowledge is towards the root, and from bottom to up. That's what is being taught. And this typically tree structures give fantastic algorithmic efficiency when you do information processing, and that is visible here as well. That is visible here. In 3 steps we reach to the root, and it is meaning when you, because there are people who spend a lifetime trying to discover what that God means, and they still don't discover. But the scripture gives in 3 simple steps, and if we get it, we understand what it is. And then some of you might be familiar with the Taittiriya Upanishad. Again, for youngsters, I will summarize. It has 3 chapters. First one is called Sikshavali. It is like a convocation address. The students who are graduating from the university and who are also highly educated and they are ready to go and become teachers, to them a good message is given. That is first chapter. The second chapter is teaching about the infinite as a form of science. In a scientific way, as a Shastra, second chapter teaches about the infinite. And it's mind-boggling how they could visualize from where the universe came and what is the infinite and so on. And it is all science. If you see the second chapter, it's all science. And you need abstract mathematics to appreciate what is being taught. And third chapter tells you a story to explain further the science that is taught in the second chapter. The second chapter is called Anandavalli, and third chapter is called Bhruguvalli, because Bhrugu is the student. He goes to his father and asks, please teach me about the infinite. And father says, as a teacher, go and inquire. And he comes back after inquiry, for whatever be the period, and summarizes what I am seeing in the universe is nothing but a collection of annam. Annam here is mass with life expressed. For example, you have a rock. Rock, you cannot say annam, you cannot eat it. But when that material has life in it, you are ready to eat. Whether it is non-vegetarian or vegetarian, does not matter. That mass in front of you has life in it, then only it is compatible with us because we have life. And so first state, he realizes that what I am seeing is material with life. And he says, yes, very good, because in his expression, Bhrugu does not single out one person. He sees the entire collection in the universe of living beings and says it's all mass and life included. Then the father says, no, it's not enough. You go and inquire further. So he comes back and says, it is all prana, all living being. I see the universe or the world full of life. By then he has negated the physical form, simply giving importance. So suppose I am a doctor and I am treating a patient. I don't imagine myself as a doctor. I imagine myself as a form of life. And I see the patient also as a form of life. I neither see as superior nor I see the patient as inferior. I am a form of life and the person in front of me is a form of life, no discrimination. I see everything just as a form of life. And that's what he says, this is full of life. And the teacher says, very good, but that is still not the proper understanding. So he gets back and he says, it is the mind. It is the mind. So that is Manomaya. And I hope I am reading it right. Yes. So it is the mind, as I said earlier, it is the mind that drives how this energy, prana, is used. Therefore, I see everybody as a mental. That means prana has a physical relation because mass energy are correlated. But by the time you went to mind, you are past the physical thing within yourself. And again, when he says Manomaya, the universe of mind, all individual minds sum together, not one individual. And then says not enough. He comes back and says Vijnana, the knowledge. It is the knowledge that helps us how my mind should decide. And then I use the energy to do certain thing. Then he comes back and says, no, this is all Vijnanam. I see. See, this fourth step is so important. We all tend to see the sun as a ball of fire. But in this solar system, encompassed is our intelligence, our knowledge. Our knowledge, our existence, and our intelligence is not outside the solar system. This is all encompassed in the sun. And therefore, we should see, when you say everyday prayer, Jokcha Suryandruse, that is, we see the sun as a form of knowledge, not as a ball of fire, mere mass. And that's what he realizes, that I see lot of knowledge and intelligence all around. Because the trees are growing with intelligence. The entire biological system that I am part of is growing and living with intelligence. And that is what is driving this whole thing. And he is mind boggled by this. And teacher still says, you have not realized the ultimate. And he says, Anandamaya. Here, Maya represents plural. And it's all happiness, nothing else. And if you remove Maya, the plurality, and if you keep just Ananda, that represents the nature of the infinite. And 5 steps, just 5 steps to reach the ultimate truth. And the algorithm is so efficient, so efficient. And I am stopping here due to time. And the same lesson is taught in Kathopanishad with 2 mantras in a much elaborate way by Yama to Nachiketas. And maybe I will, due to time, I will stop here. And thank you very much. I will perhaps one second. I will recite the prayer once and conclude. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Thank you.
I would like not to speak a lot of what after has been spoken and spoil the environment, but I will be failing in my duty if I don't thank Dr. V.V.S. Raveendra for having covered such a wonderful topic, visualizing technology and science with Vedanta, and what great spiritual and scriptures have given to us, and motivating us to further more inquire into this immense knowledge that is being bequeathed, and seldom we give such a kind of attention to it. And although I made notes, I don't want to go into it for the paucity of time, first of all, but at the same time, I know such is the immense knowledge that is there and that he had prepared. He has not actually covered even 70%. I know that because I had the slides with me. But I think he has dealt a lot in bringing out the laws of nature and how the set of rules and artificial intelligence is about the machine learning. We all know artificial intelligence, but the beautiful concept of how the universe is learning and what is driving that learning. It is that divine intelligence that is indwelling in every form of life. And then our journey towards the direction and in following that Sreyo Marga is the ultimate, path or route. So I would like to thank him for taking pains to be with us today and then sharing his immense insights. And such insights can come only after a great deal of in-depth, indwelling research within, not the sake of, making a presentation on a paper, but actually beholding it within his mind of what he has studied both from science as well as Vedanta. Thank you so much, Dr. Raveendra. The meeting is over.